All right, Jolie. I hope I've said that right.
Hey, Jolie.
Has asked, how can I communicate and understand my teenager a bit better?
Fuck. Well, I don't have a teenager, but I have been one at one point. So I think that you're not going to like the answer to this, Jolie, but one of the things that we talk about is that with a team, right? By the way, you also go through this in your life. There's 4 phases of team development. You've got forming, storming, norming and performing, and then transforming, right? So you go for four stages. First stage is just getting to know people. Effectively, this is the infant stage, right? Then you're going to go through the storming phase, and you have a phase of that, which normally happens at around 2 years old for kids, right? Where they are now starting to develop their own personality, they're upwardly mobile, and they've got to go through that process. Then it's normally pretty good. Then they go through a whole nother phase, right, around that when they become a teenager, particularly because, for a couple of reasons, from a psychological development stage, 0 to 7 is the imprint phase. They're just absorbing everything you give them. There's not a lot of resistance to new ideas at that point. Some 7 to 14 is when they start to model behaviors. But then around 14, when they hit puberty, when they also go to high school as well, they then go through a socialization phase where they start to hang around with different people. They start to realize, hey, hold on, Mum and Dad said the world was like this for the last 14 years, but now I've got people that say the world's completely fucking different. And so it's not just a clash of hormones and energies and communication styles and all that stuff, but there's also a huge clash of ideologies, right? And ideologies of how do I see the world, who am I, and how do I fit in this world as well? So there's that natural angst that comes from not fully understanding that. And there's also a lot of pressure that we put on young people to figure out what the fuck they're going to do with their lives, right? Understandable. So I think the first thing is to understand that from my perspective, and again, I don't have kids, but from my perspective, I think there's got to be an understanding of 2 things. Number one is there's got to be an understanding that I'm there to walk the path with you as a mentor and as a guide, effectively as your parent. And so there's going to be conversations that I have with you wearing the hat as mom or dad, right? And those conversations have certain expectations and they have certain reference points, and there's a frame of reference, managing the frame of reference, which is that this is what has to happen because you're still a child and you're in my house, and if you're still living here, this is the way that things are. And you don't have to get to the point of, well, I said it the way it is, that's where it is, but we've got to be able to communicate and understand why that happens. There's also going to be another set of conversations as well that is more of as a friend, as a companion on the journey. And there's a great book and a thing called Circle of Security. Chica, what's the languaging for Circle of Security? Bigger, wiser, stronger?
No. Bigger, wiser, stronger, kind.
So I was pretty much right. Thank you for that. So bigger, wiser, stronger, and kind. So effectively, it doesn't matter what age of child development or just in life in general, is you want to try and come across in a way that's bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind. And you come across in those ways, and that's really important. It's about being able to create some boundaries. I think it's also important to understand as well that there's a natural testing of boundaries, which is not actually our act of rebellion against you, but rather an act of understanding boundaries in and of themselves. It's the idea that we push ourselves, and you see this a lot with young adults, right, that have just left university and they push themselves to burnout. And they push themselves to burnout because you actually need to understand where your line of burnout is. It's actually part of the self-awareness journey. So I would try as best you can is to not take things personally, but rather to understand that there's this natural evolution that has to happen. And in some of that, there's going to be some collateral damage. And we've got to understand what it means to make wrong decisions and right ones and all that stuff that goes with that as well. But I would try to come across in a way that's bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind. And I would have very sacred time for communication, and I would have an expectation of deep communication, of communication that leads somewhere. But to be fair, if you're trying to do that at 16 years old and you haven't been communicating like that for the first 15 years, good fucking luck. So it starts younger than that, but I think you get what you tolerate. And so if you're not happy with something, then don't tolerate it, and be willing to put in place boundaries and rules and regulations that are perhaps uncomfortable, and deal with the fallout of that, right? It's like, I think from a leadership perspective, this is what comes to me in this moment. I always remember when I first started leading and managing a team, I used to ask a question when we hired people. I said, do you want to be friends or do you want to be better? And I said, I'm more happy. I don't mind if you don't like me. I just want you to respect me. because I knew that my goal ultimately when I'm employing people is to make them better at their jobs, better at their work, and that means holding them to a higher standard. If they want to be mates, awesome, but I'm not paying you to be my mate. I'm paying you because I want to get the best out of you, so I'm going to have a higher standard for you as well. And if the frame of reference is, hey, this is the standard by which I want for you in your life, and I'm going to make sure that I kick your ass until you get to that standard as well, and you'll thank me for this as well, then that's a good, important frame as part of that as well. And finally, I just read a book on fatherhood, actually just the other day, and there was a line in there by Osher Günsberg. You're familiar with, is it not OG, what was his name?
He was the one on Australia.
Yeah. And he now runs The Bachelor.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what was his old... Osher? What was his...
Osher, I thought his last name was Gish.
Yeah, it is. Osher Günsberg. But he used to have a name...
That's his name now.
Yeah, but before, what was his name?
Something different.
Anyway. So in that, he's a stepfather. And he was talking about the idea of it's okay for them to ignore you, but you still need to be there so they can ignore you. So it's the idea of there's a lot of kids in the world that don't have anyone to ignore. It's like, it doesn't matter if they listen to you, doesn't matter if they don't. It just matters that that you're there to be ignored.
It's
Andrew G.
Yeah.
So Andy G or Osher says, doesn't matter if they ignore you, doesn't matter if they listen to you. All that matters is that you're there to be listened to or you're there to be ignored. And just remember as well, as difficult it is, and we've got young people that we work with that you can see going through difficult times, play the long game. You're in it for the long game, right? Don't matter what happens at 16. It matters what's going to happen for them by the time they get to 60. So, just making sure you're building, the best you possibly can with the resources you've got. And don't be too hard on yourself if things are a little bit difficult, because they're going to be.